The podcast you are about to listen to is not a medical podcast, nor is it designed to diagnose a condition. While there are medical experts on this show, any questions regarding medical care or concern should be directed to a primary care physician.
The team at INVAX is dedicated to delivering new, personalized immunotherapy approaches to improve outcomes for people living with glioblastoma and other solid tumors. Leveraging decades of validated research and technologies, INVAX's unique platform is designed to capture a tumor's full antigen signature and use it to stimulate a patient's immune system against remaining tumor cells. INVAX, advancing a new approach to personalized cancer immunotherapy. Hey, it's your friend Shannon Trapphagen, and welcome to the Game on Glio podcast. Here we tell the stories of brain cancer and tumor warriors, clinicians, medical experts, and those in the grief and loss community. Thanks to all of you for making our podcast one of the most popular podcasts globally. If you enjoy our show, please consider writing a review. Also share us with a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and our website.
Season 4 of the Game on Glio podcast is sponsored by GT MedTech and Gametile Therapy. Learn more at gtmedtech.com. Season 4 is also sponsored by INVAX, personalized whole tumor-derived immunotherapy. Learn more at imvax.com. This episode is brought to you by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York. Visit mybcbswny.com.
Thomas Campbell once said, "To live in hearts we leave behind is not to die." Think about it. When we keep someone we love in our hearts, when we move with intention because of the love someone gave us, when we share stories and memories of someone, how can they not stay alive? For some, grief takes on forms that lock away the memory of the one they grieve, and that's okay. But if we do that for too long, then we start to live life as if that person never existed for us, never touched our lives. And that can lead to a place where the grief becomes so big that we never find a way forward. Moving through grief means finding ways to keep our person close to us while also making room for new things, new adventures, new feelings, new memories, maybe new love. It does not mean forgetting that person or replacing them or erasing them. I have experienced and seen others be erased from lives due to a death because the individual's grief is so strong and covered in so much anger that you become the punching bag. Erasing you becomes easier than remembering what's been lost. But that's not what moving through is. Our hearts have an enormous capacity for love, forgiveness, healing, memory, laughter, closeness. It's not always easy, and some days you do feel like you are not progressing forward. Young loss especially takes more time than most. It's not to say losing someone who's in their late 70s or 80s and so on is not hard, but it's a different type of grief. When a life is cut short at a young age, grief takes longer to move through, yet we can move through it. I talk about Mike a lot, privately to the heavens and in public. And for some, I can tell it makes them uncomfortable. But Mike will always be part of my life. He will always be part of my story, my journey, my past, and my future. His memory will never die because so many of us that loved him or were friends with him will always find a way to hold him close outwardly and inwardly. For me, Mike will remain a huge part of my life because he was not just my husband. He was my best friend in life. He taught me how to grow and to be a better person. He was a pillar for me. He was my home. Because of that, I know who I am even without him by my side. He gifted me with insight that I carry forward into my future, whatever that may be. There will always be a hole in my heart, but slowly my heart is growing around that hole. These days, I move gently forward. I help others, I reach out my hand to those in need, I walk patiently with myself, and I hold gratitude for what I had with Mike. Our guest, Lauren Long, of the Big Tree Memorial Fund moves through her grief as well. She has found a way to honor her best friend who died from glioblastoma. She joins us after a brief word from our sponsor.
Our time is precious, especially when you or your loved one is diagnosed with a brain tumor or the cancer has spread to the brain. That is why GammaTile is here, the only FDA-cleared bioabsorbable implant specifically designed for the brain that delivers immediate radiation at the time of brain tumor removal. No more waiting to start radiation. No more of your precious time spent going to outpatient radiation treatments. With GammaTile, focus on what truly matters: your recovery, your strength, and cherished moments with loved ones. Discover GammaTile centers near you and find hope from inspiring patient stories at gammatile.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to bring into the conversation right now our next guest. Her name is Lauren Long. She is an avid storyteller and chaser of all good things, which I love. Her full-time job is Vice President of Marketing at Prescriptive Data, where she and her team work to make the world a better place by reducing buildings' carbon emissions through AI-powered software. She's based on the East Coast, and she's an avid equestrian, outdoor enthusiast, and book lover who knows all too well that tomorrow is never promised. She also happens to be one of the co-founders for the Big Tree Memorial Fund. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
It's a very empowering conversation, and it's one that we have over and over and over again. And so many of us that have been touched by brain cancer in any way, shape, or form understands all too well how time looks and how life looks after walking alongside somebody who has battled brain cancer or glioblastoma, for that matter, which is the worst version. Let's start with Big Tree Memorial Fund. You guys started Big Tree Memorial Fund, which is a 501c3 nonprofit, after your friend Erik Knapp died from GBM. Tell us a little bit more about him. Who was he? How did you guys become friends?
I'm going to start this a long time ago. When I was a child, all I wanted was an older brother. And around the age of 6, I figured out that that was not going to happen. No matter like how many times I requested it from my parents, it was just physically impossible. So I always gravitated towards, looking for that person who would be that older brother. It took me 18 years, but I found him in Erik, my freshman year of college. We met at the University of Maryland, and we quickly bonded in a truly familial way, whether we were working out or going to games or going to bars or just living and occupying the same space. That's how we really hit it off. Erik was just the life of the room, whether it was a party or a bar or just like a family dinner. He was the one that you knew was going to make the experience something special. He truly embodied the spirit of YOLO, for lack of a better way to say that. But he really maximized time. And so people were drawn to him. He had this magnetic personality, and doors opened for him, and he opened them for other people. He was just that guy that you wanted on your team.
He sounds like an amazing individual, just somebody that blessed your life, gave the gift of who he was, and just taught you so much about life just through the relationships that he had with people.
Yeah, definitely. He was never satisfied with the status quo. And so he was always working to make himself better. And by being around that, he always pushed others to do more, to be better, to like maximize themselves. And that type of energy is really inspiring.
So let's start with the diagnosis. We're talking about Erik because he was diagnosed with glioblastoma. How old was he when he was diagnosed? And from diagnosis to death, how long did he have?
He was 36 years old.
36.
Yeah, it was 2020, and his first child was born on Valentine's Day. Leading up to his first Father's Day, he had been experiencing debilitating migraines. He had gone to a few doctors and found some relief, but it was all extremely temporary.
Mm-hmm.
On Father's Day, he woke up and he put on a strong face, even though he was suffering, and he wanted to be there for his girls. His friend took him to the ER where they took a CAT scan and they showed a large mass that was putting pressure on his brainstem.
Oh, wow.
He was rushed to surgery at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, Maryland. He made it through the surgery, which they hadn't given him great chances of, but then he slipped into a coma and he never woke up. So he passed 2 days later.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I didn't expect that. I knew a little bit about the story. I was not aware of how quickly all of that happened.
Yeah, it was an absolute whirlwind.
Wow. We have another guest that's coming on the show later this season whose husband, from diagnosis to death, only had 2 months, which is the first I've heard of. His glioblastoma was on the brainstem, down near the base of the skull. So it sounds like Erik's was located in the same spot between where your neck and your head meet. Is that where his was?
Yeah, I believe so.
Wow.
I know it was along the brainstem.
Okay. So he basically went in, found out he had brain cancer, had the surgery, and then that was it. He was gone.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think he only had a few hours of understanding what was happening since he was diagnosed in Frederick, Maryland, and then thrown in a helicopter and rushed to surgery in Baltimore. So I don't think he really had a whole lot of time to grasp what was happening before he was put under for surgery.
We're going to talk about Big Tree and how you guys formed this, but let me ask first, before I get to you specifically, how did his wife handle? I'm trying to wrap my head around. I mean, I had 14 months to come to terms with the fact that actually, I didn't come to terms with, I didn't know I was going to lose Mike until the day he died. But we had 14 months to get used to a new normal. She never got that opportunity. How did she deal with the loss?
Ashley has impressed me from the first day I met her. As all of the good things I said about Erik, he was also an absolute character. It took a special person.
I have friends like that.
to be with him. Yeah. So I've always admired her strength and resilience. And how did she deal with it? I don't know how she dealt with it. She was so strong for herself and for her daughter, most importantly. As I mentioned, Erik had a huge community and a huge network of people, and Ashley has an amazing family that's nearby. There was definitely plenty of people to help how you could, but I don't think there's any way outside influence can truly help with that sort of a whiplash.
Right. When this happened, given that you guys were friends for so long, how did you handle or deal or cope with his sudden departure?
I learned about the cancer diagnosis, immediately on Father's Day, and I was actually at my own father's home celebrating the day. And I can remember exactly where I was when my friend Andrew Beninati, who is another co-founder of the organization, called and told me. And it was absolutely gut-wrenching because I was terrified of cancer. I've had many cancer experiences throughout my family's life, but the most recent was when my father was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer.
Oh, wow.
A few days after his 60th birthday, which was 4 years prior. So he went to Johns Hopkins and had all the treatments done. They had initially wanted to go in and surgically remove it, but it would have removed the ability for him to speak as well.
Okay.
And he didn't want to be that guy, as he put it, if he could avoid it. he went through quite the process of radiation and chemo and anything else we thought that could, empower him. And he was able to beat it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the officiant for my wedding the next year. I knew how scary it could be to have that cancer in your family. And Johns Hopkins is an amazing place, but also a stressful one.
Mm-hmm.
So I was immediately terrified, but knew that if Erik had a fighting chance, then he could overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't get that.
He passed away in 2020. So it's been a few years now since his death. How have you coped, or how have you grieved? What have you done to allow yourself to move through the grieving process of your dearest friend?
Grief is incredibly complex. And I think it's very different for everyone. Not that you're a stranger to it, unfortunately. In Erik's case, I got really angry because it felt like something was stolen from someone I really cared about.
Mm-hmm.
And that something stolen was his life and Parker's ability to grow up with this incredible dad. And I know he wanted that, from the bottom of his soul. A lot of that anger was shared with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, what do we do?
Mm.
We're just sitting here stewing.
Mm-hmm.
How do we channel that into something that he would want us to do?
Mm-hmm.
To make this horrible surprise into something that could be impactful for good. So that's what really led us to create the organization in Erik's legacy.
So now how many of you have founded the organization?
So it's me, my friend Andrew Beninati, Eddie Ohanian, and Brent Watson are the true founders.
So Big Tree, it's interesting, and I really want to know more about this. Big Tree seems to be, there's meaning behind the name. So Big Tree was Erik's nickname, is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so how did he get that nickname?
Well, Erik was a large man. His calves were the size of the average person's thighs, and he was very proud of that. So there was a summer in Ocean City, Maryland, and he was fiercely loyal and protective, and there was a potential altercation that was going to ensue, and he simply said that big trees can fall hard. And the name Big Tree stuck with him. And it was on the back of jerseys when we did Tough Mudders. It was his, screen name back in the day. Like
That is hilarious.
Yeah, it just stuck with him.
That is terrific. I mean, it flows so nicely as the name of a nonprofit, but you would never know that it stems from a nickname for this guy that, is such a dear friend and companion who was to so many. I love how fiercely protective and caring he seemed to be. It just seems very fitting of the person he seems to have been.
Absolutely. And the Big Tree logo, is this large oak. And if you look at it, you see there are 3 different colors, and it's each color of the Maryland flag. And in the branches, you can see an E, an A for Ashley, and a P for Parker.
I love that.
So it's his family is embedded in that logo. I think of it as an oak tree.
Yeah. The roots run strong and they run deep.
Mm-hmm.
And to incorporate his wife and his daughter is really, what a great message to get out there, to everybody.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good symbol of strength in a community that appreciates it.
Mm-hmm. So you guys started this foundation, you started this nonprofit. When did it officially launch? When did you guys officially really start getting out there as the Memorial Fund?
We officially launched on his birthday in November of 2020. And we didn't really do any large events until the following year when we started a golf invitational, which is our biggest fundraiser.
So now you guys have been in operation for the last few years. What has gone well with running the nonprofit, and what do you think some of the obstacles are? I know it's a Herculean undertaking to run a 501c3, and it takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of manpower, a lot of passion to run a nonprofit. So tell us a little bit about some of the events that you guys have, where the funds go, what you support with the fund, and maybe some of the obstacles of, being part of a nonprofit.
Certainly. So especially that first year when we started the organization, we knew we wanted to do something in his legacy between all the range of emotions of anger and shock and sadness. We channeled that into the processes that it takes to create something that will last.
Mm-hmm.
None of us had experience running or definitely starting a nonprofit organization. So we leaned heavily on each other, which was great, as well as coming to terms with, what we had all lost and what we were trying to build in his name. So one of the hardest challenges for us is time management, because we want this to do big things, just like he was, and we want it to be great. And we all have full-time jobs. We all have kids and families. So it's this passion project that we find the time to do, but we always wish we could do more with it.
Yeah.
That's definitely a challenge. And then in more of an expansion challenge, it's easy to have everyone who knew Erik involved in the Big Tree Memorial Fund. But we can't continue fundraising from that small group of people.
Yeah.
So it's about how we grow our presence and our reach so we can continue to impact and help more families.
It's interesting. I've had the same experience with my fundraiser. I did not turn it into a foundation because there are already so many amazing nonprofits and organizations out there doing such great work. So I run a fundraiser every year and then give the money that's raised to clinical trials or nonprofits that are in the work of the brain cancer space. But that first year was amazing. We had our community of people who knew Mike that came out, and they were there the second year. And then you get into the third year and it's like, okay, how do you grow this out so that more and more people can be reached and you can support more and more things without just tapping into that same small pool of individuals you started with? So I totally understand that. What kind of things have you guys done? So you guys are based out of the East Coast. You guys do run a golf tournament invitational every year, which is your biggest event. Do you have other events that you run or other initiatives that you guys have done? What kinds of things have you explored doing so that our listeners, if they want to get involved, they can, or if they want to donate or sponsor, what kind of things are you guys looking to do if you want to expand?
So we have the social channels. We have an active Facebook, Instagram, and a website and a newsletter. We're trying to keep people involved and updated, not only on what we are doing, but things that are happening within the glioblastoma community. We do little other fundraisers, like we'll sell merchandise or swag with our logo on it. We just did a Super Bowl square fundraiser, which is kind of fun. So we do little quick ones, but probably one of our, and we definitely have sponsorships available for the invitational if people would like to get involved on that. There's more information on our website at bigtreememorialfund.org. But one of our biggest accomplishments recently was we just got our first grant, which we're really excited about, through Frederick County, Maryland.
Really? So tell us a little bit about the grant. What will that be used for? Congratulations. I mean, that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's a great step in expanding beyond our core group as a source of financial assistance for the families. So I guess I haven't actually said what we do.
I was going to get to that next.
Since 2020, we've raised over $100,000 and assisted 5 different families.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. Once we started the organization, we realized that one of the common denominators families face with some sort of financial burden,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was, a mortgage or food, daycare, hospital bills. The list is quite expansive.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided, instead of donating like $1,000 to 15 families, that it would be great if we could make a bigger impact to the families' lives by donating larger increments. We did our research and learned the taxable limit, which is currently $17,000. So we decided that this could relieve some sort of the financial burden, like paying the mortgage, for 5 to 6 months, so they can focus on other parts of their life.
And these are specifically, you guys are supporting families that are in the brain cancer space. So it's specifically brain cancer related. Is that correct?
I think half of the families that we have helped are brain cancer related, even glioblastoma. But we focus on Maryland families that have lost a parent to cancer.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That is very interesting. I don't think I knew that. So you guys put a lot of emphasis into families where a parent has passed away from some type of cancer, but not necessarily just brain cancer, even though that's part of the mix.
Correct.
Okay. So you guys support as many families as you possibly can, or do you guys have a quota of what you'll take each year? Is it always like, 4 to 5 families, or does it just depend on how much money you raise?
It really depends on how much we raise. The first year we raised $15,000 and we gave that to a family, and it's a really powerful moment. We do it during a ceremony at the end of our golf invitational.
Okay.
So the family is able to see that they're now part of this additional community to lean on, and it can be pretty impactful.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last 2 years, we've been able to give 15 grand each to 2 families.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great to be able to help more.
Yeah. So now, in order to give to these families, what has to happen? Do people have to go to the website and apply for the assistance? How do you connect with the families?
Honestly, that was something we were worried about when we first decided what we wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a sensitive topic. There's HIPAA issues, and it's been unreasonably easy to find.
It's such a double-edged sword saying that, right? It's, you don't want it to be that easy, but at the same time, you want to be able to have the impact that you want to have.
Exactly. So we haven't had to resort for searching for families. It's all happened organically through word of mouth.
Has it really? Wow.
Yeah. So like last year, one of the families was a cousin of a friend of mine. My friend was telling a group of us about the woman's story, where she was a young mother and passed from a very aggressive form of breast cancer very quickly after her diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, that's really sad to hear, but maybe we can help the family.
We have so many great foundations and nonprofits and organizations in the nation right now that have really spawned and formed over the last 5 years. I mean, it's amazing how many have sprouted up, specifically in the brain cancer space, but really just to navigate and help patients and families find resources and to support clinical trials to get more neurosurgeons and residents, interns trained and wanting to be involved in this space. But you are only the second foundation that I know that focuses specifically on the family. So instead of on the clinical research or trials or supporting those resources, you guys focus on the family. And I know of 2 other foundations in the United States that do the same thing out of everything that's out there. And I think that it's really important that we have that. People don't realize, especially when it doesn't matter what kind of cancer it is, but when you have these very aggressive cancers and the individuals are young, and let's not forget, Erik was 36 years old. Mike was only 45 when he died. You're in the thick of life and most people don't have a mortgage that's paid off at that age. And,
Right.
And bills that have to still be paid. And when you lose a significant source of income and a partner, that, you have relied on, and all of a sudden everything falls to you. And then you've also got medical bills that start to play catch up after an individual passes away. It can be really inundating. It can be overwhelming. It can be really scary. I've met and spoken with many widows, more widow than widowers, that were not primary breadwinners, that had to sell their home, move into an apartment. And it's really hard to see people struggle that much, because the amount of support after somebody goes from cancer, people forget that there's an aftermath. Everybody's there during the thick of it. But then when that person passes away, when that person dies, there is a huge aftermath that those who are left behind have to figure out, especially the ones at the epicenter. And I think people forget that. So I think it's important that we're talking about this, that we can showcase the work that you guys are doing, because I think that that's forgotten about a lot of times, that these people need the support after the fact.
Yeah, one of our big targets was raising awareness about glioblastoma, because it's always been termed as a rare cancer.
Mm-hmm.
The number of people I know personally with it makes it sound not at all rare. And then also to help the families, because like you said, there's so much focus on the medical side of it and the treatment, but
Mm-hmm.
what else is, the butterfly effect
Yep.
of the diagnosis
Yeah.
and the treatment.
It's interesting, we talk about how glioblastoma is a rare cancer, and, pediatric brain cancer is rare, and these other forms of rare cancers. And it does. It's one of those things where when something is finally on your radar, all of a sudden you start paying attention to it and you notice it more.
Mm.
All of a sudden people become introduced to you, or they are in your orbit, and you just become more heightened to knowing how many individuals are out there. And as much as I hate to say it, it's a rare cancer because it doesn't have the numbers and the statistics that lung cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of diagnoses a year, where glioblastoma has between 15 to 19, 20,000 diagnoses a year, which is ridiculously large, especially for a cancer that has no cure. But at the same time, again, it's like a double-edged sword. I would rather it stay in the rare form and not see those numbers growing. You're still getting a lot of people diagnosed each year, but I really don't want to see those numbers climbing where it's 50,000 a year, 60,000, you know what I mean? So it's kind of one of those things where that rare diagnosis stigma that's attached to the numbers and the statistics, it's not as rare as we would like it to be, but it's still rarer than other cancers. And I really don't want to ever see those numbers climbing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. A great perspective from that.
So you guys have this amazing fund. You guys have had some outstanding achievements. I know that the golf tournament, the invitational you just had this past year, did exceptionally well. Game on Glio was honored to be a sponsor for that invitational. When is the next invitational?
We have another one on September 13th.
Okay, so early fall coming up. So we will make sure we have the information on our site. We will make sure to get it out there to anybody who wants to get involved. But let's circle back to, so we have this amazing foundation. We have this great work that you guys are doing to support other families. I'm curious, do you keep in touch with Erik's wife, Ashley? Do you still talk to her? What does she think about the foundation, the work that you guys are doing to support so many?
Yeah, Ashley and I still talk pretty regularly. We have monthly calls for the organization, which include the founders, Ashley, as well as Erik's father and mother.
Okay.
So it's still very much a family supported initiative.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good way to keep us all connected, and his family is incredibly important, and we always want to be there for Ashley and Parker, and she's a fabulous person regardless. Like, I always want to be in both of their lives. So it's just something else that we're doing. And she has been nothing but supportive of everything we've done. Like, we were part of the South Pole Trek for brain cancer.
Yes, with Lance Kawaguchi.
Exactly. So we had the opportunity to go to NASDAQ in December and ring the closing bell. Fortunately, I already had a trip planned to New York that week. So I was able to go and represent the organization, and I think it was pretty emotional for everyone to see our logo, on that big screen in Times Square.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a physical manifestation of all the big things we're trying to do and, the big impact. And I know it meant a lot to her to see that there.
As we're talking about big impacts and furthering the cause of the work being done, I know that brain cancer specifically is very close to your heart for obvious reasons, even though the foundation focuses on both areas of cancer and the impact you guys have. But what would you like to see happening in the world of brain cancer research that maybe isn't happening? I mean, ideally, what would you love to see taking place in the next couple of years when it comes to brain cancer treatments and research?
I would love to see the focus start to include or maybe pivot into prevention. It's so hard to fight once it's already there. So if you're able to prevent it from happening, I realize that's fairly idealistic, but there are so many alternative health remedies and options out there just for, the common cold that we didn't talk about 10 years ago.
Right.
And, people are more aware of the impacts of electromagnetic waves and all this other technology and upgrades that have become so rampant in our lives that we don't know the effects.
Right.
I would love to have more emphasis put out there, into what lifestyle choices can lead to in terms of health ramifications.
Wouldn't it be great if, and I've thought about this, I've said this to myself many times and to colleagues and doctors in the field. We have all of these preventative screenings, for lung cancer and heart disease and mammograms and colonoscopies. And we have all these amazing preventative screenings that can help detect and catch things so early or make sure that everything is good. And yet MRIs are the one thing, and there is some radiation exposure, but you're getting that with your mammograms anyway for women.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the one area where there is still so much pushback just to get an MRI. My mom was recently diagnosed with breast cancer, luckily caught it extremely early, and it was very just age driven. But they said, okay, we have to send this out for biopsy. We need to do an MRI. This is what it is. And it took hopping through so many hoops just to get the MRI, even though the doctors had already said, this is malignant. We're doing the biopsy. We need the MRI. But yet the insurance companies pushed back. Even when Mike was diagnosed, they did the MRI and then sent out a thing to the insurance company. But in order for us to get the result, we were waiting for hours and hours and hours because there was so much pushback, because for some reason, insurance companies don't want to cover that cost. But how great would it be if we could have preventative MRIs for people at the first sign of any small little, and I hate to say it because you don't want people to become neurotic or
100%.
or OCD about getting an MRI all the time. But so much research has shown, even if you can catch glioblastoma in the first or second stage, which is you just never do. You just don't. It's just so hidden. But if you could catch it in a stage 1 or a stage 2, there's a potential to get rid of it and not have it come back because it hasn't blown up into a stage 4, which is when everybody finds it. I ask that question because there's so many things, if we could really increase the technology and find a way to break the blood-brain barrier, and like you're saying, like lifestyle choices and changes and what's driving the exposure to glioblastoma, to brain cancer, to brain tumors in general. It would be great if we could put more emphasis on that, and find preventative ways to keep people healthy in the brain space.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I'm always a little timid about the business aspect of it that might prevent further research into preventatives, but I'm hopeful. I believe that people are good at their core. And I might have to repeat that some days, but
I repeat that all the time. I'm constantly telling myself, no, people are good. People are good. People are good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a constant battle, right? But this is This is why we talk about these things. I mean, this is what this is for. This is what this show is for. It's about finding the hope and finding the drive and finding solutions, and sharing narratives that can help in this space. You guys have done an amazing job with the foundation, with Big Tree Memorial Fund, and you guys are doing such amazing work in helping families that are in need, which is so crucial. It really, truly is. I'm wondering if running the fund, staying in touch with Ashley and Parker and Erik's family, does it bring you some peace and some comfort to be doing what you're doing and to stay so connected to, his wife and his daughter and his family? Does it help you in your grieving process?
Yes, definitely. The feelings, the grief comes in waves. The core group, the founders and I, and Ashley and Parker would too if she had a device to join in on the group chat. But there's always little signs that make us think of Erik. His number on his jersey and for everything was always 66. Whenever that shows up, at the gas station or whatever, it feels like a little hug.
Oh, I love that.
We constantly are sending each other little moments that we're like, hey, he would have liked this, or this was because of him. He's not here, but he's not truly gone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that helps me feel better. It seems like a weird way to put that, but it does help.
It seems to provide hope. It sounds like it provides you like a reminder that his impact is, I've heard this phrase so many times, and I really feel like it's true. And there are moments where I've had some people that say, you talk about Mike a lot, and it makes me worry that maybe you're not moving forward. But people die twice in life. When they die, their physical body dies, and when we stop telling their story.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that a number of times, and I feel like that is so true. And I feel like as long as we're continuing to tell their stories and reminding ourselves of how they impacted and touched our lives, then they never truly go away. And I feel like that's kind of what Erik is for you guys with the fund, with Ashley, with Parker, with the stories that you guys share, that he lives on through each and every one of you. And because of the stories that you guys continue to share, that he'll never fade. He'll never, ever truly go away, even though his physical form is no longer here.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. And I like to think that we're building this impactful energy with the organization that his daughter will recognize and be like, wow, she didn't get to know him, but like to have this organization built for him, he must have been really awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
So as we get ready to wrap up, two things. What do you think Erik would say looking down on all of this and all of the amazing work you guys have done and the families that you guys have impacted? What do you think he would be saying to you guys right now? And lastly, share a funny story, something about Erik that always made you laugh, or something that he did or he would say that would always just make you burst out laughing or smile from ear to ear. Share a little bit about that, about him.
I think he would be really proud of what we're doing. I think he'd be telling us to do it better. He was always incredibly logistically minded and like the number one planner. When he proposed to Ashley, I saw all the renditions of The Ring beforehand. This guy did not do things on a whim. It might look like it was accidental, but it took months of planning. We also have part of this project that we call the Little Oak Project.
Mm-hmm.
Where we've teamed up with Children's National Hospital. We did it last November. So we did like a Christmas in November where Erik's dad actually dressed up as Santa. We handed all of these gifts out to 46 of their long-term cancer patients to help boost morale.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
And I think Erik would have loved that. Dressing up, he would have had elves like come in, like he would have gone all out for this. And that feeling of fun and like, well, this is something, we should do or we have to do, and just making it the best thing possible was just something he did across the board.
Wow.
He was goofy. So there's so many stories, and thankfully for these little digital recorders that we have on us all the time.
Yes. Yes.
There's a lot of proof of the fun that he had with everyone he touched. So a lot of those memories are captured and remembered. Before you and I talked today, I rewatched our video for the organization, and it's a slideshow of photos and videos of Erik with why we started the organization and his story. And every time, we've had this video for almost 4 years now, every time, like, it makes me cry.
Oh.
I don't think that's a testament to the video quality, like, we did it ourselves, but it's a testament to who he was and who he still is. That motto that he seemed to have, that was just live every moment and do it big, often, like, grabs me. If I'm working out or not doing it hard enough, like, I'll be like, well, he would have been yelling at me right now. Or having a day that could be better. Like, well, what would he have done, in this situation? I don't know if he would appreciate all of that credit, but I'm sure he would take full credit for any of the good things we are doing.
It sounds like his energy and his spirit has been entwined and interwoven into your life so much. He probably wouldn't want to take, if he's anything like my husband was, my husband never wanted to take credit for anything. He didn't want to be praised that much. He felt it was embarrassing. But I think that when you look at the impact and the way that you guys do things and how often you think about Erik and getting choked up or crying when watching, the videos or seeing things that remind you of him is just a testament to how deep that impact went and what a strong bond he had with all of you. It's important, he lives on through the work that you guys do. And every time his name is mentioned, like, we sit here, we're talking about him right now, and I feel like he's got an ear open saying, oh, there's a lot of conversation going on around about me right now.
Yeah.
I feel like his energy, like so many others that were amazing, humble, giving, truly beautiful human beings, those are rare people to find on this earth. And when they leave us, they leave a massive hole, but they also leave a huge impact. And Erik sounds like he was one of those individuals, and that impact is just going to keep going through the work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And the biggest good thing that has come out of this entire event is the community that we've been introduced to and become a part of. The network of people who really care about what's happening and the caliber of just capabilities that are in this community, including yourself and so many of these other organizations that we've kind of paired up with.
Yeah.
It's invigorating to be around.
It's nice to not feel alone, right?
Yeah.
It's the same for me, meeting you, and you and I have so many commonalities, with our love of horses and the outdoors. And, we've talked about that offline, and it's amazing when you can meet people in this community and just feel so supported in the work that you're doing. And that can only serve to allow this to just flourish and grow. I'm so grateful to have met you and so many others in this community. And I think the work you guys are doing is phenomenal. I would love for you to share with us again the name of the website and where people can find you on social, on Instagram, so that, if people are interested, they can follow along. And, we'll make sure that the information and hyperlinks are up on the website as well.
That would be terrific. So once again, we started the Big Tree Memorial Fund, and our website is bigtreememorialfund.org. And you can find us on social at Big Tree Memorial Fund, specifically Instagram and Facebook are our big ones.
Perfect. And on your website, is there a place if people want to donate just separately or just individually to help support the work that you guys are doing? Is there a place for them to make a private donation, or is it just through events and the sponsors?
It would be incredible if any donations would like to be given. We do have a donation page on our website that connects through PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, or check. So it doesn't need to be a public thing if people would like to do it anonymously. But every little bit does make a difference.
Terrific. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing with us a little bit about Erik Knapp and his story and his family and the legacy that he leaves behind and the work that you guys are doing. Big Tree Memorial Fund it's a beautiful organization. It's a loving organization. I'm really thrilled with the work that you guys are doing. And I'm so grateful that you were able to come on the show and share the story and talk a little bit about your friend, who left us way too early, but will never be forgotten.
Thank you so much for having me. The entire organization is really excited to have this chance to speak with you. I know Erik would be pretty excited that his name will continue to live on through a different method of content.
Well, thank you so much. And for everybody listening, we will have information about how you can find Big Tree Memorial Fund, the work that they're doing, and their golf invitational, which will take place in the fall 2024. Until then, stick around with us. We have a little bit of messaging after a brief word from one of our sponsors. A proud episode sponsor for the Game on Glio podcast, Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York has helped millions of members since 1936 lead healthier lives. As a community-based not-for-profit health plan, Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield invests millions of dollars each year to strengthen and enrich the health and quality of life in Western New York. Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield provides a wide variety of health and wellness initiatives, including free fitness classes and farmers markets throughout our community all year long. For more information or questions on our initiatives, contact us at communityrelations@highmark.com or visit mybcbswny.com. I was looking for inspiration on how to end today's episode. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to say or how I wanted to wrap up today's show. There were so many lessons to be learned and so much meaning. I decided I was going to pull out Mike's journal and see if I could glean some wisdom from his words that he's written down over the years. And there it was, some thoughts that he had about how to look at life, about how to walk through life. And so I'm going to share his thoughts with you. I feel it's the perfect way to wrap today's episode. Mike wrote a passage about attitude, the attitude we have in life, and how to approach life, especially during trials and difficulties. These are his words, the words of my late husband. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude, to me, is more important than facts. It is more important than the past. It's more important than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes. It's more important than what other people think, say, or do. The remarkable thing is, we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for the day. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing that we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we react to it. And so, it is with you to be in charge of your attitude. We cannot change the inevitable, but we can control how we get through each day, no matter what happens to us. So with those thoughts, we end today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We have another amazing episode coming up next month. Until then, walk with grace, with guidance, with gratitude. Thank you so much for listening to the Game on Glio podcast. You've been listening to the Game on Glio podcast, the podcast that is designed to educate, advocate, and tell the real stories of those walking the journey of brain cancers such as glioblastoma and grief and loss. Like what you hear? Share us with others. Follow us on Instagram at Game on Glio Podcast, Facebook at Game on Glio, or visit our website or YouTube channel. You can find us anywhere podcasts are played.